All right, we will begin. I want to welcome everyone to the 6th meeting of the House Standing Committee on Economic Development and Workforce Investment. Just a few reminders before we begin the committee meeting today. Ask all folks to silence their cell phones at this time. If you are interested in testifying, please use the sign-up sheet in the back. Testimony is within the chair's discretion based on time restraints and information already presented. We do know that the staff for this committee will also be needed for, strike that, there is no 10 o'clock tourism meeting. Thank you, Representative King. Members attending remotely, please indicate your location when the Secretary calls the roll. Only members in their annex offices or on the Capitol campus will be counted as present and allowed to vote on bills. If any member has a question or comment, please signal to Janine or Sasha. Members attending remotely that have a question or comment, please send a message in Zoom using the chat function. Sasha, at this time, will you please call the roll?
Representative Baker.
Present.
Representative Bantag.
Present.
Representative Beckler.
Barely here.
Representative Bojanowski.
I'm present.
Representative Bray.
Present.
Representative Brown. Representative Callaway.
Present in the room.
Representative Cantrell. Representative Freeland.
Present in the room.
Representative Gentry. Representative Hart. Representative Huff.
Present in the room.
Representative Johnson.
Present in the room.
Representative King.
Present in the room.
Representative Cole Carney. Representative Lawrence.
I am here.
Representative Lockett.
Present.
Representative Rowland. Representative Sharp. Representative Sheldon.
Here in the room.
Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Truitt.
Present in the room.
Representative Elliott. Chairman Weber.
Present. We do have a quorum and are duly constituted to conduct business today. At this time, we're going to begin the first bill. We are going to go out of order because earlier I thought we had a conflict. That appears to be resolved, but House Bill 744 is already set up with a presentation today. So at this time, I'm going to turn the chairmanship over to Representative Elliott, and he will chair, and I will go down and testify on House Bill 744 with my guests today.
Good morning, Chairman Weber, and you're recognized to proceed and introduce your guests for the record on House Bill 744.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Russell Weber, State Representative, 26th District.
Lincoln Brown.
Turn your microphone on right there.
There you go. Lincoln Brown.
Julie Babbage with Babbage Co-Founder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, for hearing House Bill 744 today. As an outcome of the pandemic, remote work has become the new standard for highly educated and talented workers. Many economists agree that remote work is going to be a major feature of the economy that will increase over the next 5 years. Research shows that nearly half of Americans would choose to live in a small town or rural area if they could move anywhere they wanted. This gives states like Kentucky, with beautiful land, high quality of life, and low cost of living, a distinct advantage at attracting this talent. Right now, the best and brightest have the option to locate anywhere in the world and bring their job with them, and we want Kentucky to be the place they choose. Currently, Kentucky is losing ground to more than 25 other states who are using incentives to increase their pool of skilled workers, with at least 15 of them specifically incentivizing remote and STEM workers. Some of these states include Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Georgia, Hawaii, Indiana, Louisiana, Maine, Michigan, Mississippi, New York, Oklahoma, Vermont, Washington, and our neighbor West Virginia. Just last year, West Virginia started their program for remote workers and saw immediate success with over 10,000 applications. They've already relocated 110 new jobs with average salaries over $100,000. In their first group, 94% had at least an undergraduate college degree. Last year, Kentucky passed House Bill 372, which would have provided tax incentives of up to $15,000 to attract remote workers to the Commonwealth. Although the bill was received with strong support, it was ultimately vetoed by the governor. Since then, we've been speaking with subject matters experts such as Lincoln Brown, who have been researching similar programs nationwide and learning which strategies work well. This new bill, House Bill 744, provides incentives for eligible companies that invest in attracting a remote workforce to Kentucky, improving upon House Bill 372 by creating a public-private partnership where the investment partner is responsible for identifying, recruiting, and building community for the best and brightest we can attract to our state. In this way, Kentucky can attract talented workers without taking any risk. We have no upfront financial obligations and have no responsibility to retain who we move here. Instead, a private company will be responsible for investing a minimum of $10 million annually to build and manage a premier remote worker attraction program for Kentucky. If the private company succeeds in recruiting and retaining new jobs to the state, they will then share in that success and recoup their upfront costs through a wage assessment of future tax revenue. With this new idea, Kentucky could build the largest remote worker incentive program in the nation. This will inject hundreds of millions of dollars of new labor income, spur economic growth, and increase Kentucky's talent pool of highly educated STEM workers. Members of the committee, at this point, I would like to turn it over to my guests today to expand further on this bill and the program.
And before we recognize you, Mr. Brown, there's a committee substitute. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. And the committee sub is adopted. You're recognized, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman Weber. And thank you all for making time this morning to hear more about this project. As many of you are familiar, remote worker trends have sustained, starting with COVID and then post-COVID, where now 1 in 4 Americans work remotely full-time, and that trend is expected to continue through 2025. What you may not know, and is so relevant for today's meeting, especially in a state like Kentucky, for what we're discussing, is in a recent Gallup poll, 48% of those remote workers are just as interested in working in rural areas as in large cities like Lexington and Louisville. Some of the feedback we've often heard for this from the beginning is Lexington and Louisville often benefit at the expense of other smaller rural areas in the state, and at least for this program based on data at scale, that's not been the case, and it would benefit all areas of the state. Going to this slide, this has been a fun fact that we've shared with some of you in meeting that not everyone was aware of, but since 1970, Kentucky has the worst trend line in the country for what is also known as brain drain. We are now 44th, I believe, in the nation for losing our most highly educated citizens. And as an opportunity, this program creates an opportunity to work against the tide there. What we're going to show you today is a program, as Chairman Weber mentioned, that is no risk to the state and less expensive than traditional incentives offered to other companies moving them here, and will also not only increase our talent of tech workers in the state, but also increase your ability and the state's ability to attract tech companies to Kentucky, where one of their top 2 criteria are always local workforce and density of talent that they're able to recruit when they move here. As Chairman Weber mentioned in his comments, there's a number of other states who have tested a program like this, not all at a state level, many at a foundation level or local community level. And we have studied all of them, and we have met with many of them, including flying to Tulsa, Oklahoma to meet with the most successful program in person and spending 2 days with them. It's known as Tulsa Remote, and they launched in 2018 as the first program of its kind. In that year, they had over 10,000 applications. And what's remarkable, since 2018, they've retained 88% of the people who've moved to Tulsa from outside Oklahoma. So people are not just moving to Tulsa for the year and then leaving again after they receive a check. They're staying there. What's even more remarkable is the average salary so far has been over $100,000 per year for those who moved to Tulsa. These are high-paying jobs, software engineers, tech workers, product managers, graphic designers, really high-paying jobs at tech companies, often working in New York City, in San Francisco, Boston, D.C., larger metropolitan areas. They've seen tremendous success. Harvard did a case study on Tulsa because of its success, and as I mentioned, the average salary is $100,000. The average person is 35 who moves there, and then on average, for every 2 people who come from the program, they bring somebody else with them. So there's a multiplier effect of about 50% on average for the program. What was really compelling is they just released, fortuitously 2 weeks ago, a 2021 economic impact study of the results of the program so far. And if you look on the bottom line, by 2025, the trend line is they're going to generate $500 million per year in new earnings to the economy in terms of the taxpayer base, a significant number. And this is all done as a nonprofit out of the George Kaiser Family Foundation. It is not done at a state level, and it is not a public-private partnership, which we're going to talk about here shortly. So the typical operation is very simple. There's 3 components that go into it. First, you have to identify and then recruit to your state. So you do as much as you can to create awareness, and then you recruit those who are the best fit for the state. And it's not just the quality of their job, it's how sincere they are about moving and then staying in the state long term, right? You don't want to recruit people who are trying to game the system, so to speak. And we're going to talk about the unique opportunity we have to bring back our best and brightest who've maybe left the state, who are just looking for a reason to come home. And then you create a financial incentive tied to their retention over time. And then the most important part from studying all 26, and we'll talk more about this, is creating community for them and making them feel like they have a home. It's everything from creating co-working space to having a monthly speaker series to introducing them to a local accountant, a local dentist, helping them get set up at the best restaurants in town, making them feel like it's their new home. So the way that we've outlined this is as a public-private partnership. Now, know that this started as a nonprofit interest for us. There was no interest to create a partnership with the state. It's only been almost by default from meetings with you and also meetings with those in the governor's office that this seemed like the best approach. As Chairman Weber mentioned, House Bill 372 last year passed but was vetoed by the governor. And there are some political risks there that do not make it ideal as a government-led program. We also looked at as a nonprofit, of which there are a range of complexities doing it as a nonprofit, one of which is economic development is not inherently tax exempt. And you have to get a qualification as easing the burdens of government for it to be counted as a nonprofit, which there's a lot of risk there. And that was our primary interest. And we had Frost Brown Todd create a legal opinion, and it certainly wasn't clear cut, which for investors or donors is not what they wanted to enlist their interests. So it left us with the only option here, which was a public-private partnership, where you have a group of investors or a third-party company come in, they put up the money, they take on the responsibility of paying those who are moving here, the remote workers, and then retaining them long-term and helping them feel like it's a home for them. One of the first people we met with in the Senate who led House Bill 372 last year was Senator McDaniel, and he said, and when we talked about the government also leading this, in addition to the political downside, was that this is not an ideal program for the state to run in terms of all the different range of complexities that go into it to do it well. When you look at what's worked in the other 26 states doing it and the states that hasn't worked as well. We mentioned Tulsa, where the retention has been high. That's not true in every state. In some states, the retention is much lower. And so there is quite a bit of risk that the investors and the operating team would be taking on in this. I kind of mentioned this. This is a little bit of a eyesore as a slide, but it just shows you all the different aspects that go into running this program successfully. Without any of these 5, the program doesn't work well. So you need competence in all 5 areas to do it well. One of the things we're most excited about that's come out of meetings with you is a desire to bring back those who've left. I myself grew up here in Lexington, went to Henry Clay High School, and then left and came home during COVID and have loved being home. And I had family reasons why I had to come home. But not everyone who leaves really has that nudge or reason to come back. And so one of the things that we're excited about is working with the University of Kentucky, with U of L, Morehead, Transy, Center, Bellarmine, colleges across the state to identify a lot of their top performers and build a shared database that the state then has insight and a view into who their top performers were, and then we will recruit them back and give them what we'll call first option. We'll also work with companies throughout the state to help them recruit tech workers. There's kind of a fundamental knowledge that you build in learning what works and what doesn't work to recruit people here that we'll be able to share with companies across the state to help them be more competitive, and I think it's one of the things we're most excited about in doing this. Lastly, in terms of potential, this is what excites me the most personally, is that within 4 years, we have the opportunity to build what would be the equivalent of the largest taxpayer base of any company in the state. So you all know how much work goes into recruiting top companies to come here. This is a new innovative way to do that, where over time, if we're able to recruit 6,000 people, making an average of $100,000 a year, you then create a taxpayer base. In this slide, you see $650 million tied to 6,500 people of $650 million a year, and the taxpayer base contribution to Kentucky. Over time, the goal would be to expand upon this and reach a much higher level. And that's where I think this is such a unique opportunity for the state to really be competitive and do something at scale that no other state has done. This is a very innovative approach, and we're really excited about the opportunity.
Motion on the bill.
Second. There's a motion and a second for adoption. We do have discussion. Is there anything you'd like to say, Ms. Babbage?
Sure, I'll just add that as a younger person with siblings and friends around the country who can work from anywhere, I'm really excited for Kentucky to have this novel approach and get to lead in this category, and certainly would ask you for your vote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative King, you're recognized.
Thank you. This is an intriguing project. I'm very, very excited about it. May I drill down just a little bit about the retention part? I just jotted down a few items. You said some states were better at retaining these employees than others. The things that came to mind that might, well, you'd have to have internet to even get them here in the first place. But are some of the other family considerations like education, arts, dining, housing opportunities, are we going to need to be able to have those options to help keep them here once they understand how wonderful Kentucky is?
Yes, ma'am. In studying the 26 programs and seeing what's really effective, anything that contributes to building community matters. So everything you just said is relevant and important. What you see is with many applicants is they're kind of self-selecting. Some may really like Hazard, right? A more remote area, small community. Some might like Lexington or Louisville. Some might want to move to Bowling Green. They really self-select, and I think our job is to give them the full landscape of the state and help them find the community that's best for them, and then find the people in that community to welcome them. You really need a champion in each area. So we'll be working with the counties who are interested and the cities who are interested, and they'll need to have a local advocate who will kind of be like a local tour guide, right, and a local mentor to help them. And we will pay for that in many cases to help support that. But it's really up to the local community. There's a partnership here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Chair and Acting Chair, for this wonderful proposal. Sounds like a great idea.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Representative Bojanowski, you're recognized.
Yes, thanks so much. I'll tell you, one of the things I'm most excited about as I kind of read through your slides is the target to Governor Scholars. My daughter was a Governor Scholar. My sister was a Governor Scholar. You know, those are the best and brightest of our students across the state. And I've also been studying brain drain and how we're losing people from the rural areas to the Golden Triangle and from the Golden Triangle to outside of the state. So I'd love to talk to you more a bit about this. Very excited about something that encourages our best and brightest to stay in Kentucky or to return to Kentucky.
If I could, Representative Bojanowski, I was just going to speak to that too. I was a former governor scholar and left the state, and the community aspect was so crucial for me sticking around here. I was thinking about churches, right? Other local organizations that can really pull people in. So many of our communities have a rich, community aspect to them, and I think that was crucial in getting in convincing me to really stay in that decision. So I appreciate you calling out that community specifically and thinking about targeting them to come home.
And you can see how we can make those people feel appreciated where maybe they've lost some connection with Kentucky, where they receive notification that, you've been chosen and we want you back. Come home, give us a chance, right? Just come in for a visit. One of the things we see with successful programs is they pay for a visit, they bring someone in and they give them a 2-day tour, put them up in a nice hotel, take them to, like a recruiting visit, right? Just at a large scale. And so helping them feel seen and appreciated is a big part of this.
Representative Beckler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the handout that we have, your slide presentation, if you could go number 15, it talks about, this is in the appendix, it talks about the Tulsa remote program.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. That projects for in 2020. Do we have the data in for 2020 or 2021 to see if the projections were met or exceeded?
Yes, sir. Fortuitously, there was an economic impact study released 2 weeks ago for 2021, 72 pages, and we just took out the key, the key points, which is they're on track to generate $500 million a year to the tax base within the next 3 years. And then for every dollar invested to recruit someone here, it created $13.77 in impact to the economy in terms of the total labor income to the economy. And for every 2 people who moved, they brought 1 person with them. So there's a 0.5 multiplier rate for everyone who moved.
Mr. Chairman, follow up?
Yes, you may.
Without sitting down and doing the math,
Yes, sir.
the chart says a boost of $1.4 million in 2020. My question specifically is, was that boost met? And what about 2021?
So the specific number you're speaking to is the income tax revenue back to Oklahoma. I don't know this. Right. I don't know 2020 off the top of my head, and I don't want to misspeak. What I know is this was from a Harvard case study before 2020 projecting that, and from what I understand, they surpassed all of their projections because they didn't project to retain 88%. From talking to them, their projections were they would retain closer to 70 to 75%, and they were surprised that they even retained as well as they did. So all I know is anecdotally that they felt they surpassed their projections, but I can't speak to 2020 specifically. But we can get back to you.
I would appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Sheldon.
Thank you. Great presentation. It's the kind of thing we need. And a couple quick questions, just trying to get it right in my head, and I probably should be able to read and figure it out. But $10 million, you can come and be part of this. I think there's a 4% wage assessment. Is that where we're getting our income from this? First question.
Yes, sir.
And 2, I assume that's there's no corporate tax. Well, there may be, and I guess that's my next question. Would it just be those corporate entities that are outside our state that would be eligible for this, or why wouldn't somebody within the state that could possibly utilize this program? Or would that, I guess I'm asking that question.
Well, one of the advantages we see is we were talking to one of your peers yesterday, and they love the idea of working with tech companies in their area in Louisville to help attract people to Kentucky. So now they can say, if you're approved for this program, you also get $10,000. So it helps our existing companies in Kentucky be more competitive and also move people here.
Well, I think it's a great answer, and I was hoping that would be it because
sir.
I was concerned that it might exclude. And
Oh, no,
and
we
really,
wanna-
our biggest opportunity is expanding our existing infrastructure, and
Yes, sir.
And that this does that as well. So,
Yeah.
so then I guess on localized Kentucky companies, you still have the corporate tax in addition to this wage assessment tax, right?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Just want to make sure. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Great bill.
Yes, sir. And one of the things I didn't touch on, if it's okay.
Fine, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't know how all this works.
You're fine. No, go right ahead.
And I forgot to wear green today. I'm off to a bad start.
I did too, so I've already been.
All right. But if you go to the last slide, I think this is important because we want to make decisions as a state 10 and 15 years ahead, not just what's going to help us in the next 2 to 4 years. And if you look at Austin, Texas, and you go back 25 years to when IBM moved there and Trilogy moved there, Austin, Texas is a tech hub. What you think of it today is not what Austin, Texas was. You find the same in Boulder, Colorado, in Boise, a number of smaller towns that have grown and taken off because they made a big investment in technology and moved a number of engineers there and created that density and the kind of the agglomeration effects, if you will, of the benefits of such a concentrated level of talent in one area. And that would be the hope, not just for Lexington, Louisville, but across the state, especially for those cities who are really willing to do the work. There's no handouts here. The cities and the counties in the state have to work with this program, and the local companies do, and the colleges and the communities to make this a success. But if they do, it really will bear fruit over 10, 15, 20 years, which I know we all want.
Representative Cantrell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the presentation because this came toward the end of last session and it was not very well understood. And I understand it a little bit better now, but I still do have a couple of questions. I guess my first question is how many companies could potentially take advantage of this? Is there a cap on that? I know you said something like your goal would be to foster about 6,000.
Well, the
new
goal
or
is
remote
certainly more
employees.
than that. 6,000 was kind of our minimum baseline because that would create the equivalent of the largest company in Kentucky, which is a big milestone, right? I think everyone here would be proud of that if we did that. The cap is relative to how much investors are willing to invest if the program works. So if the program works, they'll invest more, and there just needs to be enough incentive, not too much, just enough for them to want to continue to invest. And we have met with a number of investors to understand their interest, and not to get too technical, but what they like from talking to them, all of them, is this is uncorrelated to the stock market and other investments. They're really just investing in two things. One, the labor supply, and do people like Kentucky? And I know people are going to like Kentucky, right? We have the programs that work have a low cost of living and a high quality of life, which you can argue Kentucky is the best state in the country for those two attributes, so it should work here. And work really well, but hopefully we can move many more than 6,000.
So there's not like a pool that once one company takes up a large share of it, there's enough pie for everyone, depending on how many companies want to take advantage of this.
I think every company should take advantage of this. It's up to them to recruit the people who are most sincere about staying in Kentucky and care about Kentucky. I don't believe the company who does this will favor those who just want to come into Kentucky and do a tour for a year or two. We want people who have roots here, who love Kentucky, who care about the community, and it comes across in their application process. We want them to sell us why they want to be here.
And may I ask one more question, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you may.
My question is about the top of page 3, where this may cease after 5 years, but that's not a hard end date. So could these incentives potentially go on for a long time?
Sorry, I got confused looking at slides. You were talking about the bill itself.
Yeah,
I apologize.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
At the top of page 3, can you say the question?
At the top of page 3, there it says may cease after 5 years, but
Well, I understand.
sometimes these programs you kind of want to have a hard end date because you don't want to be giving companies incentives for forever.
Sure. This was the one sticking point. So one of the things we did, and I think we've had 22 meetings now, is we just asked for objections, right? Everyone comes in to sell you all. I want to know what are the problems and why might this not work. We don't want the state, and the state doesn't want to get stuck with something for the next 50 years they can't get out of. And so what we created was a way that after 5 years, the state can buy out the investors if they don't continue to wish to support the program long term, where they are not stuck with a revenue share into perpetuity.
Right.
We're not sure what the most elegant solution was, but from talking to you, getting advice from as many people as we can, this was the best solution so far. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure I understood that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative
I'm glad you
Kulkarni.
read the bill. Yeah.
Representative Kulkarni, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question about the wage assessment part of the bill. And thank you very much for bringing it. It's an intriguing concept, but could you kind of walk us through how that would work?
Julie, you want to do it?
Sure. Just the income tax is essentially what that assessment looks like. So it's if you're making $100,000 and your income tax is 5%, right? Then $5,000 is that wage assessment.
$4,000.
You go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the income tax of the state would be 5%, 5,000, and then 4,000 of that would be paid to the entity who's bringing the worker here. In this case.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If there's no other discussion, we have a motion and a second. Sasha, please call the roll.
Representative Baker.
Yes.
Representative Bantack.
Great bill, yes.
Representative Beckler.
Aye.
Representative Bojanowski.
Yes.
Representative Bray. Yes. Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Callaway.
Yes.
Representative Cantrell.
May I explain my vote briefly, please?
Yes, you may.
I was one of the people, I think, last year at the end of session who voted against this, so I feel like I really appreciated the presentation and the ability to ask questions about this. I do still have some concerns about what I remember saying in the late hour last year, as this was considered at the end, that there's a difficult balance between investing in the people that we have now when we have limited resources and investing in an idea of people we want to attract here later. And I understand the really good goals behind this and wanting to attract high income, highly skilled young workers. And I'm going to vote yes today, but I'm still working out that balance of investing in the people we have now versus this dream of attracting people later. So, but I'm a yes, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Elliott.
Aye.
Representative Freeland.
Yes, I think it's a great bill.
Representative Gentry.
Yes, willing to give it a try.
Thank you. Representative Hart. Representative Heff.
Absolutely, yes.
Representative Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative King.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Kulkarni.
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Lawrence.
Yeah.
Representative Lockett.
Yes.
Representative Rowland. Representative Sharp.
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Sheldon.
Of course.
Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Truitt.
Yes.
Chairman Weber.
Yes. Good deal.
House Bill 744 is amended by Committee Substitute 1, passes with favorable expression. Congratulations. And I'll turn the meeting back over to our chairman.
All right, our next item on the agenda is House Bill 708. Representative Dixon, if you'll come forward, introduce yourself for the record. Your guests will introduce themselves as well. After you've done that, we do need to adopt a committee sub, and then you can begin your presentation on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Representative Jonathan Dixon from the 11th District, and I will let my guests introduce themselves.
Good morning. I'm Ashley Watts, President and CEO of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce.
And Charles All, Senior Policy Analyst at the Kentucky Chamber.
We have Representative Bray and Representative Cowley. Any questions on the sub? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. The sub is adopted. Representative Dixon, you can continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Currently in the Commonwealth, there are many individuals and families that are on public assistance that are ready to make the transition off of assistance, but insurance costs, additional benefits, and simply the unknown are holding them back from making an informed decision. House Bill 708, as amended by the committee sub, has two main goals. First, it directs the Cabinet for Health and Family Services to develop a proposal, and I will stress a proposal, to make a benefits cliff calculator and an online jobs posting database available to the general public for applying and reapplying for benefits. Second, we are asking to develop a task force this year during the interim, of which would bring both parties, stakeholders, to the table to discuss and study the benefits benefits calculator cliff ideas and the impacts of the cost of those programs. I would like to turn it over to my guest for further explanation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The Chamber has come before you many times over the interim and this legislative session to talk about the number one thing that we hear from all employers across the state, small employers, large employers, and everyone in between, and that really is workforce and the crisis that we're facing currently in the Commonwealth. And as we've discussed many times before, as much as we wish there really is no silver bullet. There is not one kind of one-size-fits-all solution. And so that's why you've seen many bills from supported by the Chamber from legislators this session to really tackle the issue of the workforce crisis. That really is a multifaceted solution. And we want to thank you all for really taking this issue seriously. And there are many bills going through the General Assembly right now that are really going to help the workforce issue that we're currently seeing in the Commonwealth. But as we know, this is an issue that has been building for about 20 years. And COVID obviously exacerbated this and it heightened a lot of our inequities. And the workforce issue is definitely one of them. And just like it took 20 years to get into this issue, it's not going to be an easy fix overnight. But one of the ways that we really do think that we can help fix the issue of workforce here in Kentucky is to address the issue of benefit cliffs. And like Representative Dixon said, benefit cliffs is really when someone is working and they're making a wage here in Kentucky, but if they go over a certain amount, they're going to lose a lot of the benefits they currently receive. And over the last year or so, we have traveled the state, we have talked to employers all across Kentucky, and this really is an issue in the Commonwealth. And we hear from employers and employees that employees sometimes don't even want a raise. They are worried about making a little bit more money because they would lose their CCAP benefits. They would lose potentially their SNAP benefits. They would lose these benefits that mean a lot to them and their family. And so kind of hovering that wage issue really is an important issue here in Kentucky. And actually, I was speaking at a child care conference earlier this week, and it was brought up from child care workers. They are worried about going over that amount to where they would lose those benefits that are helping their family. And so I just want to commend Representative Dixon for this very innovative idea. The issue of benefit cliffs, I think I've been working in Frankfort for many years now, and it's something that we've all tried to tackle, and we really have not come to a solution that has worked here in the Commonwealth to really make sure that people can transition from getting those benefits into a job where they would not need that. And so this idea, I think, is very pragmatic. It gives a task force over the interim for all sides to really come together, experts to come together, put our heads together and try to figure out a pilot program so that we can help these workers in Kentucky. And so with that, I think I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Charles All, to give a little bit more details about the bill.
Yeah, this legislation, I think, is a relatively simple, straightforward bill, but it's engaging with an incredibly complex topic. And I think the bill does a really good job of acknowledging the nuance of things such as benefit cliffs and comes up with an appropriate way to tackle that in the context of Kentucky. As Representative Dixon already said, the first part of this bill would require the cabinet to develop a proposal. So in other words, this is the start of a conversation. They would then bring that proposal back to the legislature for another conversation about how we would all want to proceed forward in terms of the implementation of this benefit cliffs calculator. The idea here is to create a tool that families could use, caseworkers could use, employers could use to understand the implications of, say, becoming a dual income household, accepting a pay increase, accepting a promotion, and how that would affect an individual's decision making when it comes to, moving off of public benefits, for example. This is a calculation that a lot of folks are making. It's something that when you're on public benefits, it's that sort of kitchen table calculation that takes place. They're thinking these things through. One of the things that could be really advantageous about a good, well-structured benefit cliff calculator is that it could also kind of help them see, okay, what's the break-even point for me? How much income would I need to make to be kept whole and fully transition off of benefits in a way that makes financial sense for that family? This is something we're starting to see in some other states. They're implementing these types of benefit calculators in conjunction with reapplying or applying for benefits. New Hampshire is a good example of a state that's doing this very recently, that came out of a task force that they put together to study this issue. And there's a lot of promise there in doing it. I will say there's a number of different benefit cliff calculators that are out there in the general public. One of the big problems with them is they're kind of designed for people like me to use, policy analysts. What we need something set up for is something that could be very quick, easy to use for a family that can really work through these decisions as they're determining how to proceed forward and potentially transition off of benefit or off of public assistance benefits. So this could be a really good addition to Kentucky's resources. Second part of the bill gets into a task force to really dive into benefit cliffs. Some of you might remember 2019, there was a public assistance reform task force. Benefit cliffs were briefly discussed in the context of that task force. This is a huge issue, though, and it really merits deep consideration. We need to be bringing in experts, having talks about how to appropriately structure these benefits so that we can have these smooth transitions off into employment. And so the topic is certainly of great enough significance to merit a full legislative task force to study this issue in detail. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Representative Dixon.
Thank you. At this time, we thank you for your consideration, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may
Motion
have.
on the bill.
We have a motion and a second. We do have at least a couple of questions. First, Representative Bray.
I don't really have a question, just more of a comment. I think this is fantastic. The role of government shouldn't be to stand in the way of prosperity, but that's exactly what's happening. I know firsthand of people who have had opportunities to better themselves, but have turned it down because it was going to cut into their benefits, which is kind of, it's government getting in the way. So I do thank you all for bringing this. Very excited. It's hard to get excited about a task force, but I do think that this is something that's desperately needed. So thank you all.
Representative Cantrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Charles, I'm glad you touched on the task force from 2019 because I was starting to have deja vu for a second. I wasn't on that task force, but I kept remembering something like, haven't we done this before? And can you go into a little more, because it triggered my memory that this had been studied recently, and I do remember benefits cliffs being discussed in those meetings, even though I was sort of only tangentially following them. I know it's a big part of workforce specifically, so really, why do we need to go down this road again?
And I would say, working with the sponsor on this bill, you can see that the original version actually called for a pilot program, and now it calls for a task force. We are fairly late in session, and this is a really important issue that we want to make sure that we all get right. And so I think a task force really is the most appropriate avenue at this point. And the reason being so is that as wages across the Commonwealth continue to increase, this is becoming more and more of an issue. So even back in 2019, it was an issue, but now that you're seeing wages at fast food restaurants being $12 and $13, $14 an hour, that benefit cliff they're getting closer and closer to that benefit cliff. And so the time really has been heightened over the last couple of years because the wages fortunately have been increased throughout the Commonwealth, but that gets people closer and closer to that benefit cliff that we want to make sure that we're taking care of.
And that brings up one more question. I see that we have a title amendment. There's not an appropriation in this bill.
No. At this time, this would simply, ask of the cabinet as we stated, and then it would turn around and ask for the creation of that task force to look at this, benefits cliff calculator and benefits assistance.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Gentry.
Good morning, Ashley, Charles. Thanks for coming in today. This is a very important topic, and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question. I know as an individual with a disability, that this is really a prominent issue in our disability group. There are a lot of people with disabilities out there that are have partial disabilities, or permanent partial disabilities that do qualify for some assistance, and this runs into this. And I know from personal experience that the number one thing we can do in all these types of programs is create pathways to self-sustainability. And I know that's what you guys want to do. There's a lot of fears in a disability world about, am I losing my security blanket to whatever extent to take a little bit more different wage? And it's been my experience, a lot of times it's just a lack of education. And I'm hoping this task force can do a good job at discussing good ways to approach these hurdles. And I guess my question is, can we make sure that both sides are well represented in this task force? Because it's been my experience as well. Sometimes these task forces have a specific agenda before they even start, and they kind of go in a direction, and one side doesn't really have a say-so as much as you might hope. So I hope that's not the case here. So if you could just elaborate a little bit on maybe, how can we assure that all sides are heard, that we can actually get some substantive answers moving forward on how we can create more self-sustainability.
Yeah. Representative Gentry, thank you for that. And yes, the heart of this discussion in this bill, when I even drafted 708 in the initial, the heart of what my goal is with this issue is to look at everything from a hand-up perspective. What can we do to help our fellow citizens? What can we do to help the individuals with a program or something that will give them the opportunity to be successful, to move in a direction they may currently be wanting to move in, but cannot. So yes, I in the task force structuring, we do have representation from both sides, and that's why I included in my intro parties, because I do think it's imperative that a task force like this, we're all on the same page, because it is for all of our constituents. It is for this state. And this is such an important issue that we all need input to be able to give input, and we all need the ability to own this and make this something that can truly change, something for the people of the Commonwealth.
Okay, that sounds good. And just, right now with the DEI movement, there's a lot more opportunities out there than maybe there was 10 years ago. So I think we have a lot of potential to really do some significant positive change in this area. And I just, how can I say this? I hope we're all very committed and really trying to dig in and assist in this effort, especially with workers that have impairments.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
I'm not seeing any other members requesting questions. We do have a motion and a second on it. Sasha, please call the roll.
Representative Baker. Representative Banta.
Yes.
Representative Beckler.
Aye.
Representative Bojanowski.
Yes.
Representative Bray.
Yes.
Representative Brown.
Yes.
Representative Callaway.
Yes.
Representative Cantrell.
I'd like to explain my vote briefly, please. I'm going to vote yes. However, if we really do still need to study the benefits cliff and its relation to our workforce development in the state, we probably should hold off on considering House Bill 7 later today. But I do vote yes.
Representative Elliott. Aye. Representative Freeland.
Yes.
Representative Gentry.
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Hart. Representative Huff.
Yes.
Representative Johnson.
Yes.
Representative King.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Kulkarni.
Briefly explain. I vote yes, and thank you, Representative Dixon, for bringing this bill. I was on that 2019 public benefits Public Assistance Reform Task Force. And while we were able to discuss the benefits, Cliff, we were not able to take such a deep dive into it. So I really appreciate you bringing this particular issue to the forefront. I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lawrence?
Yes.
Representative Lockett?
Yes.
Representative Rowland? Representative Sharp?
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Sheldon?
Yes.
Representative Tackett Lafferty? Representative Truitt?
Yes.
Chairman Weber?
Yes, and Representative Dixon, I too was on that 2019 Public Assistance Task Force, and we took a very broad approach to public assistance, and I know the benefits cliff is a huge issue, and we did discuss it, but I would have to say that is probably one of the biggest issues that I hear from constituents about, and I could give you all kinds of anecdotal examples of a lady in my district who is making a certain amount, but she can't make any more because then she loses her child tax credits, child care credits. And those are issues, and we do need to address that. And so I applaud this. I think a task force focusing solely on this issue, kind of to what Representative Gentry was saying, that really digs in and comes up with a good working plan for how to address this issue is important. And I think it's a good idea, and it's time for it. And I do vote yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. House Bill 708 does pass, amended with Committee Substitute 1. I do need a motion now on the title amendment. Representative Bray, Representative Sheldon. All those in favor of adopting the title amendment, aye. Any opposed, no. Title amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, committee members.
Let's see. All right. Seeing no other business to come before this committee, do I have a motion?